Great to have you on. The big news of this day, it's still early, I might add, is James Franklin signing whatever, 10-year, lifetime. It doesn't matter nowadays in college football. But good afternoon, and tell us what you know about that and what it means to other schools who we all thought James may be heading toward.
Well, we've all heard about pucker power, right, in the NCAA tournament, Paul, or when you're a big favorite in an important game. I think that James Franklin being off the board adds a little bit to the pucker power of these athletic directors trying to find a new coach, because James Franklin is someone who is at least vetted and considered at LSU, Florida, and USC. So it's one giant chess piece removed from all this, and if he had walked to the podium at a press conference at all three of those schools, that would have been approved generally as a good hire. And there's just only so many movable high-end coaches available, and the thought was until this that James Franklin may have fallen in that category, and now he's off the board. And I've written this a couple times on Yahoo. There are going to be some athletic director at one of these bigger jobs who ends up without a very desirable chair when the music stops. And James Franklin's an excellent coach. He's won the Big Ten. He's won in the SEC at Vanderbilt. You certainly remember him resuscitating that program from the ashes and then watching it return to the ashes pretty quickly after. And I really feel like this is a really interesting ripple. And it's, I think, Paul, a byproduct of we've seen this trend where everyone's in a rush to fire their coach so they can run a search. Well, those ripples are felt on campuses, so there's going to be now a rush to extend quality coaches at different places. We saw Jeff Traylor get a long extension at UTSA when the Texas Tech job opened. We saw PJ Fleck take a long extension at Minnesota. He would certainly have been bandied around for some of these jobs. And now we've seen James. I think somebody needs to send Scott Woodward an economic stimulus award from the White House for helping distribute so much money through the economy.
Well, knowing Scott's connections to politics, that very well could happen. Pete, I think there has to be a way of answering this question other than answering Jimmy Sexton, but which coach on the board or that maybe we haven't even thought of? I mean, who is the most powerful chess piece out there right now that could start impacting these coaching searches? We're just 3 or 4 days away from, I think, a lot of the starting to really kick in.
Sure. Well, I think because of timing, Paul, quite frankly, they haven't had that great of a season. I think Matt Campbell becomes a really important, person in this carousel. I think both, especially at USC and at Florida, there's been interest in Matt Campbell. He's kind of a new age coach, culture warrior, and look, he got Ohio State to win the Fiesta Bowl. He got Iowa State to win the Fiesta Bowl. Ohio State's won plenty of Fiesta Bowls. Iowa State winning the Fiesta Bowl is not easy to do, and so. Well, some of that luster may have faded with a pretty mediocre season there in Ames. He's obviously in the dynamics of the Big 12 have changed pretty dramatically too. With Matt, with obviously Oklahoma and Texas leaving, I really feel like he's a very movable coach who's going to have options in this cycle. So I think it starts there, and I think Billy Napier is really going to be able to end up in a very plum job. Timing is tricky, obviously, because they're going to be playing in the Sun Belt title game, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. But I really feel like he's going to end up at either like a Florida or Virginia Tech or somewhere that that's an excellent job, and probably looks smart in avoiding Auburn and South Carolina like he did last year. So. Those are two pretty big pieces. I'm not convinced Dave Aranda is going to leave Baylor, like some people are. I just he is not wired like your typical football coach. So yeah, the names are quickly getting swept off the board in some ways, and it's going to be really interesting, moving forward here. who ends up all of a sudden getting hot late? Is it Dave Clawson at Wake Forest? Is it Bill O'Brien, who was obviously the head coach at Penn State, who was a really good NFL coach for a long period of time? Where do the answers come from?
Pete, you mentioned quite a few names, and I mentioned some of these jobs are going to fill, and obviously those who don't fill, I think you can start using deductive reasoning to see, okay, well, that guy's obviously waiting a week because he's in a championship game. But let me go back to LSU, the school we've been talking about, not nearly as long as Southern Cal, but not far behind. What is the latest there?
It's interesting, and I think timing-wise, one name we haven't talked about yet is Luke Fickell, and they're 2-touchdown favorites against East Carolina. They'll be favorites against a very good Houston team that could beat them in the AAC title game, but I have a hard time seeing Luke Fickell or any coach of any team that makes the college football playoff moving, because it's really hard to do that when you're going to try to win a national championship and you play your last game on December 4th, and then your playoff game is December 31st. Signing day's in the middle. It would be a huge risk for an athletic director without sort of an ironclad backroom deal to go after a coach like that. And then the timing would be awkward too, like you said, Paul, when you have a season ending and then this job that's been open for a very long period of time just stays open, and there's really no movement. There's no interviews. I mean, sometimes guys run fake searches just to make it look like they're running searches, which is always funny. So, yeah, I really feel like just the transparency of this media era would make it really hard for a coach to go look his team in the eye every day for a month and say, "Hey, I'm putting everything into this game," while he already has an exit plan to walk out the door.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.